You're good.
So Colin, I'll throw a picture of you up when we're talking about this. But he came out to my property last winter, maybe in
February, I believe.
February.
Yep.
And we had an area that winds right along the creek, about 30 yards wide probably. And we went all along there and we cut trees down. We hinge cut trees and we overlaid them on each other and went for 100 yards or so, 150 yards.
Yep.
And Jim was just talking about how important maintenance is. If you don't come in the next year, it's going to start to deteriorate already then. You have to come in 1 year, and then you have to come in a second year, and then you have to come in and just walk through and make sure it's maintained. Because, and this is a little bit of an aside, but I've done analysis of bedding right at the end of the season when there's snow on the ground, and 90% of the beds that we make will be used by deer unless a stick falls down in front of their escape out the back, because we're trying to create at least 3 escape directions when we make if we're just doing a spot where we want to deer to live. Of course, we never just do a spot, we do 10 spots right in that area, or 5 spots. But so I come in at the end of the summer, so this is just 1 summer of growth, and it looks like that right there.
Mm-hmm.
And except it's thorny, and it's almost impenetrable.
Yeah.
So I have to go through with my DR mower and make sure there's a network of paths so that every one of these bedding areas is connected to the other, these bedding spots, and make sure that they can have a nice spot to lay on the ground. You have to do that sort of thing.
I agree.
And if you don't do it, it's just going to be an overgrown bramble because you let all this light in. And so I'm going to put up a video here in the next week or so because we made a video, and then I went through and took pictures of all the bedding spots we made, and it looks really cool. But you have to go in and maintain it. That's what you were saying.
And I've got to where I'm using more chemical to do that, right?
Yeah.
The mower, I got 5 DR mowers,
Yeah.
right? And they are that good, but I have problems with the carburetor on them with this gas, and so they're hard to get started sometimes.
Well,
but,
I use wreck gas only.
right, well, there you
but
go.
But you're paying
right?
$5.50 down.
Well, if you can find it.
Yeah, we've got it in cold water, yeah.
But so the DR mower has been one of my best tools. And if I'm putting seed down, it cuts that debris up and puts it down over top of that seed and really makes my food plot trails do twice as good using the mower. But again, because of timing, that backpack fogger with the Roundup, and then I'm kind of spot spraying, so I'll stand in this spot and then shoot it there, right, and walk this direction. But when I put a video out on using that thing a few years ago, I had all kinds of people saying, "Oh, that stuff's all over you." Well, we're talking about wind direction and knowing which way the wind was and trying to hunt without the wind.
Spray the wind.
Yeah, you're going to know immediately when you're using one of those foggers which way the wind's blowing. You know what I'm saying?
And besides, as
pay a lot of attention to the wind direction.
As a biochemist with a lot of experience who studied the whole Roundup glyphosate thing, there isn't a shred of evidence that it causes cancer, and there's not a shred of evidence that it's toxic in any way. Caffeine is more toxic in laboratory studies than glyphosate is. What's really more likely to hurt you is the surfactant that's in that spray. It's far more toxic than the glyphosate is. So you need to worry about the surfactant, but not so much about the Roundup.
Well, I think since I'm adding so much liquid fertilizers, the fertilizer with the surfactant is probably more of a negative than anything.
Absolutely. Yeah, you don't want to get ammonia in your eyes.
Right. So I am using a respirator more than I ever had, but I never seen any negative effects, but who knows?
Yeah.
Right? So
I haven't either.
You want to be safe? Yeah, I know, that's it, right? But everybody's out there to make money for free, right?
Yeah.
Even if they're saying all this about the cancer, I'm pretty positive.
Well, really, the basis for that is a lot of it's based on epidemiology studies, or looking retrospectively. Farmers really do have an increase in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma over the general public. So they went back and looked at all the chemicals farmers use. Something like 25 of them were studied. 19 of those chemicals had a correlation with the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So it's possible that one of those 19 chemicals or a combination of them might have a role, but we don't know, science doesn't know for sure.
Yeah.
But if you know that one of those chemicals happens to have a giant corporation behind it, that's the one you choose and you go into court, and then you select the jury so that they can't understand the real science that's going to be presented by the defense. But you just select them to be emotional and to react to the fact that this person had non-Hodgkin's, and you end up with the court findings against the company. But there isn't any scientific evidence for that. Correlative evidence doesn't mean anything really, except it tells researchers what direction they might want to look. For example, I drank milk when I was a kid. Did you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So did everybody that has non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Right.
So you can correlate things, but all it does is tell the scientists what direction to look, not what caused it. Right. So 19 chemicals, several of them had a stronger correlation than glyphosate. Some had a weaker one, but nobody knows on the planet which or if any of those chemicals actually cause it. It's just a courtroom drama thing. Mm. So, and it's probably the most studied molecule in the history of the world in terms of so many people in the world wanted to find something wrong with it, and they couldn't, and they haven't.
Well, out of all the chemicals, I know it's one of the less toxic,
yes.
For sure, right?
Yes. Oh, there's a whole host of things you use. Brown meat is more carcinogenic than glyphosate. Caffeine is. And then you get people who say, well, I use a mixture of Epsom salts and vinegar. And you go, okay, what concentration do you use the vinegar at? Oh, it's about 20 times the concentration of glyphosate. Okay, vinegar, which is acetic acid, tests in LD50 studies, which is where you give mice or rats a dose and see how big a dose it takes to kill them. Both of those chemicals that are used to in place of glyphosate score higher on those tests in killing animals than glyphosate does. In other words, they're more toxic. And you're using 20 times as much. So, no, this is not a dangerous molecule.
Well, and what I've heard the guys that have used the vinegar, it's damaging the soil in a way. You don't get good plant growth afterwards for a while anyway.
Well, yeah, it's a chemical.
Right.
It's an acid. And it's more toxic than glyphosate. I have a friend that was just telling me a couple weeks ago, oh yeah, I use the vinegar, you know. And I'm like, well, you're doing some damage there that you wouldn't have to do because glyphosate is so specific. It only really affects one thing, and that's one enzyme in plants. There's no enzyme in humans that is affected by it. So it's a salt, so it can burn your eyes, and if you can't swim and you fall in a vat of it, you might drown, so it's dangerous in that respect. But other than that, chemically, we're made out of chemicals. Everything's chemical. Right. And the water that you're using mixed to spray is chemical, and it can kill you too. If you don't have enough of it in your body, or you
have too much,
or you sink in it, or have too much. So it's just, it's not a real thing. It's a courtroom drama. Cauliflower rolls coming up.
When I go, you know,
spot spraying in here.
Yeah, I just come through and spot spray.
What are you targeting?
Those are patches of grass mainly that I was trying to hit. This here type of, I don't know what it is, this here grass. I haven't studied it. I should have got my phone app out. I could figure it out, obviously, but.
They're hitting this pretty hard.
Yeah, that's flowering dogwood.
Mm-hmm.
And it might have been hit just a little bit around the reason the leaves are curled. But yeah, you can definitely tell where they've taken the tops off. The silky dogwood and the red osier is way better as far as attraction than that flowering dogwood. But I got a lot of flowering dogwood. Another negative deal with the logging is with the skidders running around. You see our dead trees here?
Yeah.
Damaging the roots with the skidders when it's wet. right? And then it just keeps happening over time. They just keep dying off because all the damage. You can see the ruts in here, and I've smoothed it out some. But yeah, they left some deep ruts all through this thing. So in the future, you know, the sale or whatever, which this probably will be for sale in the future, these plots, because the average guy thinks it's so important to look good, they're going to look, they're going to look beautiful then, right?
But you don't care because
no, I don't care at all.
There's a ton of food in here.
I come through, you see everything that they're browsing on. So why spend a bunch more money to replace food with food?
You're right. Yeah, I know.
And you're losing cover.
Yeah, and I got safety here. No, I've spent too much time watching them eat in a clover plot and go over and grab a maple leaf, you know? To think I need to keep killing out all the maple leaves to have more clover.
I was telling on the way up here that, you know, if I'm observing deer in my small food plots that are near a stand, half of them are going to be browsing on all the heavy cover I have on the edge, and half are going to be in the food.
Yeah.
And then they'll
switch out.
Yeah. They love the food plot stuff, but they need the woody brown and the food.
Well, you know what happened with all the food plot stuff. Most of the stuff that we're using for deer food plot stuff isn't in high demand for cow guys or hay guys, right?
Right.
Like I say, the white clovers, you know, there was no market hardly at all for white clovers. And then now that they've started marketing them for food plot guys, they're 3 times more expensive than the other clovers. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And they couldn't even sell them before.
Yeah.
So they spent millions of dollars of advertising, quadrupled the price of it, and then now everybody's buying it. You know? But it's the same deal with the brassicas. They're not using brassicas for cows, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not a big brassica fan, and there's a tremendous amount of people that are.
I'm not a fan of brassicas. I've had good luck with it.
Everybody's a little different on it, that's for sure. I know they're super easy to grow, and if your deer like them, why not use them?
Well, they create so much green bulk.
Oh yeah, there's bulk in there.
Get a lot of tonnage is what I found with really good soils.
See how the deer just with big brassica plants hanging in their mouth, and they just take the whole thing on.
Yeah. So I got a stand right there, and you know, north wind, northwest wind, northeast wind, but from that side, that stand side.
Which way is north?
This way. So from this stand though, with a gun, I can shoot all the way across that food plot, and then all the way across this one, and so cutting my property in half, all except for about 200 yards in that thicket over there, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I try to do that a lot if I possibly can. Whether I'm bow hunting that, and I'm just using it as an observation, but when I can see straight through half of the area, you know,
you can get a feel for
a lot of data, you know. Whether I'm going to kill them.
That's the key, is data.
It is. So on this side, what we got is all those ridges coming up here, right? Yeah. And so then I got my wall cover, and then behind that is that trail. And so I have another stand site right over here. And this stand here has seen more deer per set than any stand on the property. You see this? Yeah, you can see it in that oak tree there.
And you're looking in that direction.
There's a ridge that comes straight up there. So now that I'm not going to go in the pollinator program with the government that I mentioned, I am going to be dropping more trees out into this field.
Great idea.
And leaving them. You know, before I dropped them out, pushed them back so I could make a bigger field, because crop field's way more valuable. You know, when the timber's cut like this, crop field's way more valuable.
And you're going to let this go to old field?
Yes. Yeah. And so I'm going to keep dumping my junk out here and get that elevated hinge cut dough bedding around this.
So in 3 or 4 years, you should have trees growing up.
Oh, I do on that side over there. Yeah. And I'm going to control some of those, right? Yeah. I got a weed wiper. Are you familiar with that?
A wick?
Well, it's a wick, but it's a two-wheel deal that you attach to the back of your four-wheeler. And so it's got a drum on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That drum spins.
Yeah, I remember seeing you at a show years ago, and you had one of those. You were buying it.
Right.
Yeah. And
And
you
so
drive around and just roll it across the higher, taller stuff.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I can set it at what height I want, right? And at a certain time of the year, selectively take out. But anyways, it takes out trees pretty well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll put the
So if you don't like a species, you can take it out.
I'll put crossbow in it, you know. So the first year this field came in before the pollinators took off, I had mare's tail all over it, right?
That usually happens the first year, yeah.
And mare's tail Roundup resistant.
Yeah.
So crossbow in that thing ran around here. And I mean, I have very little mare's tail. Now you'll see a few of them, but not much.
Well, it should go away after a couple of years.
Well, yeah, because I was thinking in the past it was more of an invasive thing because how you see it, but it's an opportunity.
It's a pioneer.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you get it thick, it doesn't force its way in.
Yeah.
It takes a vacancy.
Yeah. My friend Dan Timmons is going through that right now. He took, I think he put 40 or 60 acres into the CRT program, and nothing but mare's tail this year. They planted this spring.
But that wick does a good job on it because, again, that mare's tail jumps up so tall, and most chemical you can't, when you're spraying just from the top, you just get chemical on the top leaves, not all the way down that stalk, and those top leaves are so small it don't pull in enough. But when you wipe that thing up that stalk, and a lot of different plants are that way.
So yes, that's one thing about that sprayer you've been talking about is as you're walking through it blows right up underneath the leaves.
It hits, yeah. So, like, when I come by with that air, it pushes it, and it's going to put that chemical on that bottom of that leaf where that plant breathes. It pulls in.
Yeah, there's more stomata open on the bottom, I would think.
Yeah, oh,
because
sure.
They're shaded.
Yeah, exactly.
They lose that one.
So even on plants that typical, Roundup doesn't typically kill real well, thistle or something like that, if I'm using that air, I can get them wiped out.
You could spend a lot of time just trying to figure out how many species are in here.
Right? It's already pretty dense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again,
I'm seeing all kinds of plants that I can identify.
not much grass. There's a little bit. There's that panicum grass that I need to keep working on. I mean, that's a pretty good height.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, 7 foot.
More than that, really.
Cover.
Yeah.
But you get the cover above their eyes, they feel safe.
Well, they'll bed right in that stuff.
This field represents perfection as a food source for deer. It is not just a little bit better than the average food plot, it is immensely better because it provides the variety deer require and provides daytime cover so that the deer feel protected and yet have access to a wide variety of necessary food types. Pure monoculture food plots will produce only a fraction of the use that a plot like this will provide.
I dropped up a ditch in there, but like you said, had them drop a lot of those treetops in those ditches, or I pushed them in those ditches. Now they're awful hard to get up through.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. But, as we talked about earlier, my philosophy on my small property is to make them come to me.
Right.
To lay it out so that a buck that's in a food plot on the far end of the property is at some point going to show up on my end.
Right.
And then work his way back there because he starts getting antsy about what's going on back there after a while.
Right. So, on this, what I've done, I was talking about on all the stands, I got hubs. Well, the hub off of this stand connects to the next stand. That hub connects to the next stand, and it's all got security cover. And so, building that travel corridor, daytime activity with the cover alongside of it, I think it's one of the most important things for killing big bucks so that they can move around. Right?
Yes, you got to get them
what
moving.
they want. Yeah.
I mean, if this was just a field of soybeans, a buck can come and stand in one corner and decides it's not worth exploring, I don't see a single deer out here.
Well, that's kind of what I told you. That big one come out that corner. The very first day I hunted the property, stood out there messing around for 2 hours and went right back in that same corner.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, that's awful hard deer to hunt.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you see the persimmon trees here. Again, they got a few persimmons on them there. And then I got them all painted up. But and they're naturally spread. Look how they're popping out in this field so fast.
Wow.
Wow.
Very cool.
This field's going to look so great in a couple of years.
Look at already that growth.
What this is going to become is perfect deer habitat.
Yep.
If you want to see perfect deer habitat, look at a 5-year-old field.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
As long as you control the grasses.
Right. So I'd seen old cattle farms, right, where they'd taken the cattle out because they just got too brushy or whatever, and there wasn't enough grass in there. But the cows went along and ate the grass, and the brush kept coming in, so they were taking out the competition. You know?
Within a year or two, it's just...
There's some of the best deer, big buck properties.
And there's some of the worst when the cattle are...
Yeah.
I think
Deer don't like cows.
Well, and they don't like the fact that the cows denude everything in the field.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's that corner that turned. I'm looking at a field over there.
So you can see the clover's just sprinkled all through here, right? And
Yep.
I always say if I find a bunch of it still around in March, then I got plenty of clover, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty neat up here if you come walking up here. We could have walked in the woods instead of being out here. But I didn't put any tall, warm season grass in that mix. And look, there's a patch of right there.
I saw it.
It's natural. And goldenrod, I mean, that's close to 7-foot goldenrod.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow.
And that goldenrod, it stands up great all winter.
The soil must be pretty good here. Did you have it tested when you planted?
No, I did not. And what it is...
See, this is what you don't want in this field.
It's foxtail.
Yeah. No, foxtail's a bad one, right?
You'll probably come in spot spray this, huh?
For sure. Yeah. I pretty much do collecting no matter what on every property every year, right?
I do too on mine. One season grasses, huh?
So this here is some invasive weed or whatever, and I can't remember the name of it right now. As you can see, it's really jumped in here.
Yeah, plenty of clover out here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's growing in this big tall stuff out here, real dense down in here.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. So did you cut lanes in here?
Well, I just drove through here the other day to knock a little bit of it down, right?
Yeah,
I have not. I need more of the lanes cut, but you can see how it's, I mean, it's all up in through there, right?
Yeah.
And so I just come the first year and broadcasted this before I put down the pollinator.
Perfect deer bedding.
And the cover, right? The height and the food. So this is what I would call layering. Because you got your height with your safety, and then it's just a carpet underneath.
A carpet of food. And the tall stuff is food too.
Yeah. And there's no maintenance. I've done absolutely nothing to it, right?
Yep.
You see so many threads online about how can I get my clover plot to be weed free.
Yeah.
And you go, why?
Yeah.
This is the perfect clover plot. This is as good as it gets, right?
Well, we know mature bucks will be in this.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's still enough in here that we'll keep bringing them during hunting season.
Absolutely.
Right?
There's enough to last you all the way.
And my deer numbers are lower than a lot of guys. But yeah, this goes, way out into the property, and then I got another one of these, and it's wide. So there's a dead tree out there. I don't know if you can see the top of it. I got to stand in that. So I got a connector from this one to that one the same way. And then more of these trails coming out into this tall stuff in front of that one. So I am planning on moving this box blind in a year or so, just to get at it easier. You know, and I want to see how it ends up with them bedded in this and where they prefer. This is my higher ground on this, and this is where I'm almost
What we
positive.
walked through before, this is going to be it right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just feeling it, man. I'm feeling a big buck laying up in here.
Yep.
And a couple of doe families, too.
Yep.
He's keeping an
It's
eye
like what
on
we're
him.
saying. Look at this
Yeah.
here. That's about as good a
Yeah.
food situation as you're going to come up with over top of, what is this? That's this big tall one. I can't remember. It's some type of a false sunflower.
Oh, they've eaten it right down.
Yeah.
Right down to the stem. I mean, that thing's...
Man.
Well, and so even on this one here, as it kept growing, they just kept reaching up on it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But when you got the clover here, right? That's a little thinner, but not a lot thinner. But with that root system, you can tell they're not competing too hard, right?
Yeah.
Yep. It's a diversity.
There's plenty of light getting down through
Yeah.
here.
Yep.
It's the same thing the guys are doing with the bean fields and whatnot, you know? Just a different thought process that nobody's doing.
Underneath the ragweed, it's not growing as well because that's thick.
Right. It's just too dense. But if I would have just ran my forward over top of this and broke it down and not killed it, I would have still. But what's happening now, I mean, with this seeding out, it's done for the year. You know what I'm saying? This here stuff is going to be brown
So
here.
they're not browsing it now because it's...
Yeah, it's just past that. But June, this stuff is premium.
Summer is, to me, common ragweed is probably the best fruit in an old field. They just hammer it in the summer. But
that clover, it'll start coming back dense a little bit. I mean, it's still got some growth this year that it can do something for it. Kind of like you're saying, you look around here, you see the grasshoppers and the crickets and all the insects. That brings your birds and your additional seeds.
I just want to take a picture of this and say, this is a perfect food plot. This is a perfect food plot. This is what you want. Don't try to get rid of those weeds.